Didn't see you there. I'm actually just in the process of editing the video that you're watching right now because time is irrelevant and is not linear. But that's a discussion for a different day. Today, we're going to talk about your core and why it's important. When we think about the core, let's think about it as the trunk of a tree. The tree has to support all of those branches that hang off of the trunk, and that needs to be strong. Otherwise, come the first windstorm, heavy rain, etc., those branches are going to break off or the tree's going to fall over. It's the same with your core. We want to think about some of the benefits of a strong core being better movement efficiency, greater control of your body and your limbs especially, and a reduced chance of injury in both daily living and activity. Further benefits are better posture, more power production, and improving your overall movement efficiency. And one other key benefit that nobody really talks about, that I'm going to keep relatively short because I'll get embarrassed, is that having a strong core can actually help you with bodily functions to and include pooping and sex. So when we talk about the core, we're talking about a lot of muscles, but the one that everybody thinks about is the rectus abdominis. I don't want you to focus on that one. That's the six-pack muscle. I want you to focus on all of it. All of those muscles together being strong are going to be more beneficial than just having ripped abs. If you get those as a side effect, cool. Other muscles that we want to look at are the transverse abdominis, the multifidi, your internal and external obliques, your erector spinae, your diaphragm, and your pelvic floor.
We're going to look at the Deadbug exercise today. This is a great exercise for your core, and Jess is going to show us what to do and what not to do. Our first tip is going to be to align your posture. This means we want you to find your neutral spine. So right here, we can see that Jess wants to arch her back and flare her ribs, and that's naturally where we tend to go. So we want to think about pulling up on your pubic bone and drawing down on the ribs so that we can fire on our deep core and feel a little bit of tension. We'll still have our natural arch or our neutral spine while on the floor. We don't want to feel like we're over crunching and forcing our low back into the floor. We want to find that nice, naturally curved spine position where we have a bit of support and core tension. So our next point is that we want to think about lengthening our spine. So even though it might feel like you're really crunching in to create all this tension, we don't want you to compress your body and squish the spine. We still want to maintain the neutral and natural length of your spine without gripping down and putting downward pressure onto your pelvic floor. Then the last thing we want to look at is that we're actually breathing through this exercise. One of the biggest cheats we can do through any ab exercise is to hold our breath. That ends up over tightening the diaphragm, and it makes your face look just as cool as Jess's does there. So you can inhale, exhale at different points of the movement. The main thing is that you're inhaling and exhaling through your movement. So when we go through our Deadbug, you want to inhale and think about inhaling into your ribs, especially into the back of your ribs. This will allow you to still take a breath while maintaining a tight core position. So if you inhale on the way out, this will help you breathe into the back. And then when you exhale to bring the leg back in, that's going to make sure you're getting a little bit of power coming in. If you switch it up, you can exhale on the way out as you extend the leg. That's going to help you feel more accountable to keeping your core position tight. Then when you inhale in, the movement will get a little bit easier and that inhale will feel a little more natural to relax. So you can try it out either way and see which one lets you get the best form. We really love the Deadbug because it works so many muscles for our core. We're going to work our rectus abs, especially by kicking our legs around. Oh my gosh. We're going to work our rectus abs, so that's our most superficial abs. Those are like our six-pack abs that we can see. This is also going to work our internal and external obliques. Those go a little bit deeper underneath the six-pack abs. And then we're going to work our TVA, which is our transverse abs. That's our deepest layer of core muscles that pulls everything together. We're also working our hip flexors at the same time. Because this exercise has us moving our legs, those hip flexors are doing the job of moving the legs. But if those core muscles aren't there holding the top of the pelvis stable, then the hip flexors are going to take over and start cramping up because they're doing all the work without any other support. Oh, that makes Jess sad. So when we go into our Deadbug, there are a couple ways we can start it out. As an easier version, you can have your knees a little bit closer to your chest. And then when you tap the leg down, you can keep the knee bent. The goal is as you reach your leg down, you shouldn't feel that your spine or pelvic position changes. They should stay really stable because of that nice core tension you have. To progress this, you can push the knees a little further away from your chest and have them sitting right on top of the knees. And you can dip down here, and then the straighter your leg goes and the longer and lower your leg reaches, the more tension this is going to put into your abs and the harder it's going to feel to stop your back from arching. So you generally want to push to just on that edge where you feel if you go any further, you're going to lose that core, but stop just before that happens. If you find that your hip flexors are starting to cramp up, so you're getting that pinch right at the top of the hip, that's a sign you've lost that core tension and you're probably arching your back even just a little bit, and your hip flexors are going to do all the work without any help from the abs. We're going to look at a hollow body hold here. We do this lying on our back. This is a pretty advanced core exercise, but one that transfers really well to calisthenics exercises and lots of hanging exercises. So with this, we're thinking about making a globally rounded position with our body, like we're turning ourselves into a banana. So we want to think about tucking the chin by lengthening the back of our neck, protracting the shoulder blades, so we're kind of reaching those shoulder blades forward around the ribs. Then we're trying to pull up the pubic bone to take the tailbone off the floor and round out our whole body position without overly crunching the spine and putting downward pressure onto the pelvic floor. So we're lengthening the spine as we're tightening everything up in the front of our abdominals. So the straighter the legs are, the harder this is going to be. This is a very advanced movement, and there are lots of ways we can scale this back to build up. As Jess is showing us, you can try bending one leg at a time. It shortens your lever length and takes some of the pressure off of those core muscles. You can tuck both knees in to start with a short tuck and just work on slowly reaching further and further out so you get that nice long hollow body banana position hold. Jess is going to show us her plank here. So this is going to be our basic variation of a plank. With this, we want to think about going into a low plank position from our elbows. And we're going to be really active from the elbows. So you want to think about pushing the shoulders away. So we're protracting the shoulder blades. Then we're going to keep our neutral spine, so aligning the posture. So she's going to pull up on that pubic bone, draw down on the ribs so we've got the core on. And then we're also going to think about lengthening that spine a little bit. So she's holding nice, straight and steady, and she's breathing through this plank. So a lot of people will tend to pop their butt up in the air to make their plank feel a lot easier. This is going to make the plank burn your quads and your shoulders, and you're not going to feel much in the abs at all. A lot of people like to drop their low back as well. So this is going to be a big one that's going to put a lot of tension into your low back and might even compress your hips a little bit. Another way people like to cheat is to sit back into their calves and get a little stretch. It also pops the butt up. So again, we're taking all the tension off the core, which kind of defeats the purpose of doing a plank in the first place. So there are lots of other ways we can progress or kind of jazz up your plank, but this is where we want to start with your really strong plank. If you can't own this, don't go to any of the progressions yet. This is harder than it looks. For For this plank progression, we're going to look at a hollow body plank. So we're going to take all the things we learned about in our plank just now and line up our posture, but now we're going to globally round the body. So we're going to see Jess gets into that banana position, but now she's face down. She's also going to create tension from the floor by pulling her toes to her hands. It's going to really fire up all those muscles in her core even more. Then you might notice she's gone into a little bit of a forward lean. This is a really great progression for people looking to excel in their calisthenics. It works you more toward that planche position, which is going to be really great at building up shoulders and your overall body control so that you can get into some of those crazy movements that you do. We're going to look at side plank variations here. So we're going to start in the easier variation where we're starting from the knees. The goal here again is to align our posture, stack our joints, be able to breathe through the movement, and think about lengthening our spine right from the toes up to the top of the head. So when Jess pops up here, we're going to make sure that she's not rotating her ribs one way and her hips another way. So we need to make sure her hips and shoulders are all squared up. Then she's also going to think about popping up, kind of like finishing the top of her deadlift, where she's going to pull her hips all the way forward. And that action happens by pulling up on her pubic bone and engaging her abs, but also by just gently squeezing on the glutes a little bit. You can also squeeze the legs together for a little bit of extra help. And then to progress this, we would make this our full lever length and pop up onto the toes instead of going from the knees. You can either stagger your feet or you can stack them wherever you're more comfortable. But either way, we still need to make sure that we're not rotating the body and having the hips pointing one direction and the ribs pointing another. A bird dog is a great anti-rotational core exercise. This means that the body is going to put forces on the spine that make the spine want to rotate, so our muscles that stabilize the spine are going to work to stop it from rotating. What muscles stabilize the spine? Our deep core muscles. Yay, I'm so happy I have those. Yay. So to get into our bird dog, we're getting into our quadruped stance. Hands are under the shoulders, knees are under the hips. We're very active with our shoulders. We're trying to push the floor away with them. Then we find our neutral spine, so we're going to align our posture, gently pull up on the pubic bone so we have our natural arch, not an excessive arch. And then we slowly lift one arm and one leg off in opposite directions. As we do this, the back is going to try to arch, the hips are going to try to twist, our spine is going to try to move all over the place to cheat. So we need to really make sure we're in tune with all those deep core muscles to keep everything steady. If this is too much, you can always just trace your hand and foot along the floor and not actually lift them up, and just keep them gently touching so you have a little more balance and stability. For a challenge, you can bring the knee in for a little crunch when you come in, and then hold that extended position for longer and really challenge that trunk stability. A bear stance is essentially a shortened plank. So we set up in our quadruped position on our hands and knees. Hands are underneath the shoulders and we're pushing the shoulder blades away, but we're gently going to lift the knees off so they just hover above the floor. We're not trying to kick the butt into the air. The hips and shoulders, no, Jess. The hips and shoulders are going to stay on the same level here. So again, we check in on that neutral spine, core is on, neck is nice and lengthened. And then we just hold this and breathe just like we would through our plank. There are lots of ways we can challenge this bear stance to progress it. A progression for the bear stance is to take it into a crawl. So if we do a forward bear crawl, now we actually get a little bit more anti-rotation where the body's trying to twist and we have to tighten up our core to resist the twist. Resist the twist. Now, if we want to really challenge it, we can do our bear crawl backwards. So I like to cue this by letting your hips sit back a little bit and then pushing from the base of your shoulder blade to try and push your body back to go backwards. Then you can challenge it by switching it up, going forward and back, being really careful not to let one side of the hip drop or not to let the back arch. So Jess does a really great job keeping this super stable and super strong. As a progression for the bear stance, we're going to do bear stance shoulder taps. So this adds way more instability to our initial bear stance and we're resisting a rotation on the spine. So she's going to be active with her shoulders and then Jess is going to lift one arm at a time and tap her other shoulder. The idea here is to be really controlled and not just slam your hand back on the floor because you're about to fall on your face. We don't want to see any of that. So be careful not to shift your weight. The idea is you should be able to distribute the load between those 3 limbs, and then you don't want to rotate your hips or arch your back when you lose a point of contact. We can also do shoulder taps from a plank position. So from here, we get in our plank position with a wide stance, and then this is going to let us pick up one arm and drop down. So we want to make sure to control that tap, and we're resisting rotating the hips, arching the back, or shifting our load. The narrower the feet go, the way harder this is going to be. So start a little wider and then work yourself together to keep progressing. I'm going to break down breathing. We talked about breathing as an important part when we're doing core exercises. And the reason it's so important is because that correct breath is going to give you even more trunk stability when you're doing a core exercise or any other exercise. It's going to be the foundation behind your core. So to do a proper stabilizing inhale, we want to think about inhaling our air downward and outward. So when that air comes in, it should force our rib cage to expand 360 degrees around. That means front, sides, and back. If we're relaxed, we should also let our belly expand. But if we are getting ready for a heavy lift, our core should stay tight. So that's where the expansion around the ribs is extra important. So on that inhale, the air is going to move down and out, and it's going to open up our rib cage like an umbrella. When that air moves downward, it's going to allow the diaphragm to move downward, which is going to cue to the pelvic floor to draw downward, and it's going to maintain this pressure in our body. That pressure in the torso is actually going to create something for your spine to have stability against, so that your spine is really supported and it's not vulnerable to move when you're going to be under a load. Now when we do our exhale, that exhale is going to come from the bottom up. So it's going to bring all that air and stabilizing pressure upward. So the diaphragm is going to move up, the pelvic floor is going to follow suit and move up, and it's going to keep this nice little base of pressure that's keeping our spine and body stable. If we want to be really strategic with that breath, we can inhale on the down phase of an exercise. So if we take our push-up or our squat, we're going to inhale as we're going down toward the floor. And then we're going to exhale as we're coming up and putting more pressure on the body. And that exhale is going to help give us that stability, and it's going to help us manage our pressure so that the pressure escapes out of our mouth in our breath and doesn't build up and cause excess pressure somewhere else in the body. So this is our body's way of balancing out all this tension and pressure and letting us stay safe and have something for the spine to rest against. When we have this proper core bracing technique tied with our breath, it leaves your other muscles to do what they need to do to get the job done. So even if this isn't for a big lift, maybe you're doing housework as you're carrying a child around, so that proper breathing system is going to make sure that your torso is supported so you can carry on moving around your limbs, doing whatever you need to get through your day.
Guys, thanks for watching this video. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And also comment down below and let us know what you think about these videos. What would you like to see more of? What would you like to see less of? Are there any topics you'd like to see us cover? Also, if you like what we're doing, please consider adding us on social media. 3wave_fitness on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And finally, we have a Patreon page. Patreon is a great platform for creators like us to create rewards for you guys that you can use to either get early access to these videos, see some cool behind the scenes stuff, or get some tips and tricks that we're not putting out on social media, or to work directly with us on your fitness goals. Be sure to check it out. The link is in the description below. Please stay safe and continue to practice good hygiene and good health in these crazy times. We'll see you soon.